To help support our show, subscribe to Left Voice on Patreon so that we can continue to bring you more articles and episodes like this. Welcome back to The Red Thread, a Left Voice podcast where we bring theory to life and talk about how to dismantle capitalism one conversation at a time. I'm Killian.
And I'm Emma. Today, we're digging into a dangerous political project underway right now, one that's starting as attacks on immigrant communities with a vision aimed at the steady buildup of an even more militarized state that can be turned against all of us.
Donald Trump is using anti-immigrant sentiment as a tool to expand both ICE and the domestic role of the US military. This isn't happening all at once. It's an incremental strategy, tested in smaller moves and aimed at normalizing the use of troops and militarized forces inside the country's borders.
And here's the thing. Once that's normalized, it won't stop at immigrant communities. The same forces being trained and deployed against immigrants today can be used against striking workers, student protests, uprisings for racial justice, anything that threatens the power of the state or the interests of the wealthy. Historically, the US military has been deployed against striking workers and uprisings for Black liberation. Trump is reviving that playbook.
Let's start with ICE. Under Trump's new term, this already brutal agency is getting a massive upgrade. After he signed the so-called One Big Beautiful Bill Act on July 4th, ICE's budget is set to grow by $75 billion over the next 4 years. That's more than the annual military budget of most countries.
That money comes straight out of the $170 billion handed to the Department of Homeland Security, headed by Kristi Noem, earmarked for immigration and border enforcement. Meanwhile, the same bill slashes Medicaid for low-income people and extends tax cuts for the rich.
With its pockets overflowing, ICE has launched a massive recruitment campaign. They call it Defend the Homeland, as if there was an invasion. And they're looking to hire anyone and everyone who is willing to carry out Trump's deportation agenda.
And let's talk about what that really means. Joining ICE means terrorizing both immigrant communities and citizens, especially those from oppressed communities. It means workplace raids, surprise attacks undercover, brutally stopping people at improvised checkpoints, and more.
These raids not only separate family, harming communities, but also, and have killed people, like Jamie Alanis Garcia, who died from serious injuries suffered during an immigration raid at the California farm where he worked. Or Chao Feng-ji, an immigrant from China who died by suicide in a Pennsylvania detention center. And to convince people to do this horrific job, they're invoking patriotism, proliferating the hideous image of Uncle Sam, offering $50,000 signing bonuses, up to $60,000 in student debt forgiveness.
So right after they upend student debt payments with the so-called Big Beautiful Bill, they dangle forgiveness over other people's heads to recruit them for the war on immigrants.
Imagine if these recruitment benefits were offered to teachers, healthcare workers, social workers, or any other sector who actually contribute to the well-being of our society.
Right? They've also dropped the minimum age from 21 to 18, which means they're targeting high school graduates, and they've also eliminated the previous upper age limit of 40. They're even marketing this as a kind of fascist family bonding experience built on terrorizing immigrant communities.
And they're not just going after young people. ICE is trying to poach from local police departments and lure back former federal employees. Some reactionary celebrities have even volunteered to do PR for them, like former Superman actor Dean Cain, who went on Fox News to announce that he had signed up to become an ICE agent.
And the power that Trump is wielding with ICE makes it a hub for racists, right-wingers, and vigilantes to actually be paid to attack immigrants while they cover their faces and badges. They've been acting with total impunity by kidnapping people without identifying themselves, without showing court orders, nor revealing where the people they arrest are being taken.
With this escalation of attacks, there is a massive deportee quota imposed by Stephen Miller, Kristi Noem, and Donald Trump. That's why they're dangling such big incentives. They need more agents. But more importantly, this is a part of a broader authoritarian strategy. Expand the repressive state apparatus, fill it with ideologically aligned recruits, and use anti-immigrant panic to justify it. This brings us to another growing part of this situation: Trump's push to involve the US military in immigration enforcement. We've seen some highly publicized moments, like the deployment of thousands of National Guard soldiers and Marines to Los Angeles in the wake of the anti ICE protests in June. More recently, Trump sent the National Guard and federal agents to DC to quote unquote rescue the city from crime, bloodshed, bedlam, and squalor and worse. Incredibly racist language.
Right? His racism and criminalization of Black people comes from the same playbook he's used for decades. Like when he took out full page ads advocating for the death penalty for the Central Park Five, who were all innocent. It's the same way he tries to stoke and leverage anti immigrant sentiments as a divisive wedge to advance his agenda.
Exactly. And with his DC takeover, he's been talking about doing the same in Chicago, Baltimore, Oakland, and New York.
And these headline moments are just the tip of the iceberg. Well before those deployments, Trump had already started transferring public land from the Department of the Interior to the Department of Defense, giving the military jurisdiction over 1/3 of the land along the southern border. That's a massive, quiet shift in power.
He stationed the National Guard to work inside ICE detention centers in 20 states, not just in patrol roles, but doing the paperwork and logistics that keep the deportation machine running. Military bases in New Jersey, Indiana, and Texas are being converted for immigration detention. Fort Bliss in Texas is set to become the largest immigrant detention center in the country.
According to Pentagon data, there are at least 20,000 troops working with ICE, likely more. And a leaked DHS memo suggests the administration is actively working to lock in long-term Pentagon cooperation for domestic anti-immigrant operations.
The Posse Comitatus Act technically limits the use of the military for domestic law enforcement, but by framing these deployments as support roles or border security, Trump sidesteps those limits. Each new deployment makes it more normal to use the military in domestic operations, including surpassing local and state authorities, making the situation more unpredictable.
Needless to say, this expansion of the use of the military will not stop in the domestic sphere at all. Recently, Trump secretly signed a directive ordering the Pentagon to prepare military action against Latin American cartels, specifically in Mexico and Venezuela, marking a significant escalation and a potential new stage in his interventionist advances. Under the cynical pretext of fighting the war on drugs and terrorism, U.S. imperialism is seeking to act as judge, jury, and executioner on a global scale. So, where's the opposition? Democrats have criticized some of these moves, but mainly when they think it hurts military prestige or interferes with overseas operations.
Take New Jersey's Democratic gubernatorial candidate, Mikey Sherrill. When Trump announced plans to use Joint Base McGuire-Dix-Lakehurst for detention, her main objection was that it was a misuse of a critical military asset and might harm civil-military relations. Not a word about the impact on immigrants or their families.
Democrats have made a show of standing up to Trump's atrocities against immigrants, but while trying to call for better conditions in facilities and clearer processing, they've avoided addressing the fundamentally violent, unacceptable nature of the deportation apparatus. And of course, when Biden was president, they didn't say anything about the deportations or ICE facilities that were still business as usual.
And that's the pattern. Democrats' objections are procedural, not principled. They have no problem funding ICE. They've done it year after year. They oppose Trump's style, not the substance of the bipartisan war on immigrants.
We're recording from New York City, where we've seen this play out in real time. Immigration arrests are up sharply. DHS is detaining people right at their required court appearances. Detainees are being held in overcrowded, unsanitary conditions with little food. One person described being treated like a dog. The New York City mayor, Eric Adams, has not resisted this. In fact, he's welcomed it since he's cozied up to Trump in exchange for getting his corruption charges dropped. He's met with Trump's border czar, Tom Homan, and even offered to open an ICE office at Rikers Island. And when there was a shooting involving a CPB agent, Homan vowed to flood the area with ICE and target sanctuary cities like New York.
Social Democratic mayoral nominee Zohran Mamdani has defended the city's sanctuary policies and pledged to bar ICE officers from facilities. Trump has already threatened to arrest him if he refuses to comply with ICE. That would be a major attack, not just on Mamdani, but on immigrant communities and the movements defending them. The right has been using racism, anti-Muslim rhetoric, and xenophobia to attack Mamdani's campaign, and if he actually makes it to the Gracie Mansion, the Trump administration and the ruling class aren't going to take that lying down.
Right. Even with Mamdani's limited program on immigration rights, the right would gladly use his progressive mayorship as an excuse to unleash the National Guard, ramp up repression, and push their authoritarian agenda. We can already see how this repressive apparatus is targeting the pro Palestine movement in universities and in the streets, and left organizations like the PSL and Unión del Barrio. The question is, how much ground will the far right be able to grab? That's going to be decided in class struggle. And if we want to win, we need to start preparing for those attacks right now.
In this fight, strategy matters. We know that they will try to repress us however they can. That's why we have to organize a mass movement rooted in the working class. Because the more we are, the harder it will be to stop us. Our most powerful weapon is our ability as workers to withhold our labor and shut down business as usual. That's why the fight against ICE and the domestic militarization has to be a fight for the whole working class. And it has to be independent of the Democratic Party, which has built and funded these institutions.
We've seen glimpses of what works. In Los Angeles, community organizing backed by the potential for union action forced Trump to withdraw his troop deployment. In New York, dozens of thousands have already been mobilizing against Trump's authoritarianism and attacks on immigrants. Teachers have already been preparing to defend our students at our schools. And unions like 1199 SEIU, NISNA, PSC CUNY, and UAW Region 9A, representing over 400,000 workers, have signed on to statements opposing ICE's escalation.
But statements aren't enough. We need unions and community organizations to take concrete action, defend immigrant coworkers, refuse cooperation with ICE, and prepare for coordinated strikes to fight for our demands, to abolish ICE, shut down detention centers, and full rights for immigrants. And we need to organize mass democratic spaces where the movement can debate and decide strategy.
The fight against ICE, U.S. imperialism abroad, against the genocide in Palestine, for workers' rights, for fully funded public education, for free healthcare, these are all part of the same fight against a capitalist system that relies on state violence to maintain its power.
Dozens of thousands have shown in the New York City mayoral primaries that they want a city organized around people's needs and not profit. But we won't win those demands through an electoral strategy that seeks to reform the state without challenging its fundamental institutions. We need a mass movement rooted in our workplaces using our own methods that challenges a city organized by and for the rich. The power of the working class, united across race, nationality, and immigration status, is where we have the power to fight against Trump's authoritarian agenda and fight for so much more.
That's it for this episode of The Red Thread. If you like this episode, share it with your coworkers, your comrades, your neighbors, and your friends. And don't forget to subscribe to The Red Thread for more conversations like this. Leave us a review, donate to the Left Voice Patreon, and reach out to our contact form if you want to write with us, read with us, or stay in touch.
Thank you for listening, and we'll see you next time.